Now we will be heading towards the next topic, that is data type conversion. So Python supports converting one data type to another data type, and this is possible by using a certain syntax that we will be covering in this video series. But for now, you need to understand that data from one type can be converted to data to other type only if it is possible for the Python interpreter to do so. If Python interpreter fails to do so, then the data will not be converted and the interpreter will throw an error stating that the data cannot be converted from one type to other type. And this whole process is known as type conversion, and we will be heading towards type conversion now. So first of all, we will be declaring a variable int, and this variable will store a integer value 89 into it, and then we will declare a variable string, and this variable string will be storing a string value inside it, that is 90. And if we want to convert this string variable to a integer variable, so we can do it by simply creating a new variable, or either we can do using this variable itself, and we can reassign the value converted to after converting this value to integer. So to convert this value to integer, we just need to type that data type, that is int. It is the data type which we want to convert this string to. So inside this we will type variable string, and we are good to go. The variable string has now become an integer. So how can we check this? So we can check this by using type function in Python, which I have already taught you. So let us first check what is the type of this variable var string, and then we will be getting the type of this variable string after doing a type conversion. So let us run this program. You can clearly see that initially the type of this var string was string, and then this var string was converted to integer data type, and this conversion which we forced Python to do is known as explicit conversion. Time we will be converting an integer to a string. The process is the same. We just need to declare a new variable. Either you can use a pre-existing variable and reassign a value to it. So we will this time be using the variable int, and we will convert this integer variable to a string data type, and we will be then checking if the operation has gone successfully or not. So first of all, before conversion of this variable into string variable, we will be checking its data type to make sure that it is still in integer data type. So yeah, type var int, and then we will be again printing the data type of the same variable, and print statement should return int, and this print statement should return class str. I'm really sorry, I have misassigned the integer. Actually, this should be var over here instead of warrant. And when I'm going to run this, you can clearly see that the output is str instead of int. Everything is now clear up to here. I am feeling so good because this Python course is going so good so far. And now we will be moving to the next type conversion. We will be converting a integer variable to a float variable. So let me just comment this line out, and now we'll be creating a variable named var float, and this var float will actually be having a value that will be explicitly converted from a integer to float. So we will be converting this var int to a float in this explicit conversion. And as you have already seen that this print, the type print, as you have already seen that the print statement initially gave the type of var int to be int. So we have already checked that, but for your convenience, I will be running the statement again. And this time we will be checking the type of var float, and you will be pleased to see that what that this variable var float is of float data type, as you can see in the terminal. Now we have converted an integer to a string and string to an integer. We have also converted a float to integer, integer to float, and in the same fashion we can convert a float to integer back again. And in the same manner, you can convert a float to string and float and a string to float. Now, from my side, this type conversion topic is completed, and you can practice some questions. Now, I would like to discuss some other important topic with you, that is how to take a desired data type input from a user. As we have already discussed in our previous lecture, that input can be taken from user using a input function, and input function always takes a string by default as an input from the user. But what if we want a integer from user, or what if we have designed a program that can actually be operated only on integers? So in that case, we want our user to enter integer only. So we can actually not force user to enter integer, but we can actually what we can actually do is that we can convert this input string into an integer explicitly by type conversion. And if user enters a string even after we have displayed enter a number, the terminal will show an error and the program will exit. This in general is not a good practice because it crashes our program, but for now we will take it ahead in this manner only. We will be learning in later lectures how you can handle errors and give user a predefined error that can be defined by programmer, or you can say a error that you want to show in the terminal when user enters something wrong. So let us run this program, and we will be printing this number as well in the terminal so that you are confirmed that we have entered an integer. So we will say you have entered, and we will be using curly braces and then type function to print the type of this variable a, and further we will be entering that number a that user has entered and print it on the terminal. When we will be running this code, you will surely see that uh, on the terminal you have an option enter a number. So when you are going to enter a number, see I have entered 78 and I press enter, you have it says you have entered a integer class number that is 78. So This was all about how you can force a user to enter the data type you want. And let me show you what will happen if user tries to enter something else instead of a number. So if I text something random into the input function, you will see that there is an error. It says invalid literal for int with base 10. What this error says is that this input function expects an integer input. Meanwhile, you have entered this keyword which is a string. That is, it is not a valid input literal for this input function. So this was all I want to discuss regarding the input function. You can also take different types of data type, like you can take float from user and other data types as well. And by default, input takes a string by default from the user. So this was all about input function using a typecasting, and this was very important since we will be using this concept later in our program. So now we will be beginning with strings in Python. You might be thinking that we have already covered strings in Python, but let me just tell you, gentlemen, that it was just an introduction. String in Python is a huge topic. So as I have already said that a string is nothing but a collection or a sequence of characters that are enclosed between quotation marks. That may be double quotation mark, single quotation mark, or triple quotation mark. Now you might be thinking, why triple quotation marks? So triple quotation marks are used to make multi-line strings in Python. So let me just show you it by an example. So let us create a variable that is my string, and we will be using triple quotes, and inside this triple quotes we will be entering our string. So assume that I am writing a letter. So how will I write? I will write hello dear, then tab. I hope you are doing great. We will meet soon. Yours loved, Ram. So when I'm going to print this letter, my string, you will be able to see that I will be able to print it flawlessly because I have used triple quotes. But before, I want you to see what will happen if I will be using double quotes. And I will also show you the same program by single quotes. You can see that Python interpreter already shows me an error, but anyhow we will be running this code. You can see that here comes a syntax error. It says that unterminated string literal. So as I've already said, Python cannot know where this string ends in the case of double quotes and single quotes. For sake of explanation, let me just use single quotes in this program too. You can see that it is same error, that is undetermined unterminated string literal. So let us come back to triple quotes, and you will see that the error just vanishes. And when I'm going to run this piece of code, you can see that this exactly is what I have typed over here. Even there is no change in the space, in the white space that I have given in this lines of code. So I hope now you understand what is the significance of triple quotes in Python. Now we have seen triple quoted strings. We will be moving ahead to a very important topic, that is indexing in strings. So every character inside a string has a position, and these positions are known as indices. So let me just take a simple string to illustrate you with this indexing. So let us create a string, and let me just store Python inside this string. Now each of these characters, that is P, Y, T, H, O, N, in Python will have their own positions in the string. So in indexing, you can consider it like a assembly row. You can consider it like a row of soldiers where each soldier has its own fixed position. While they are in a march past, they cannot switch their positions. In the same way, indexing works for Python. Every character has its own position, and that position matters a lot for that character. So, indexing in Python starts from 0 and ends up to the length of that string minus 1. That is, let me just illustrate you over here. So you can see that Python, this string P Y T H O N. So this letter P will have its position at 0 in the string. This Y letter will have 1. This T will have 2. This H will have 3 as its position, and the letter O will have 4 as its position, and the letter N will have 5 at its position. Now, if you're going to count down, you will see that this word Python actually contains 6 alphabets. You can count them down: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But in indexing, we are actually having the largest possible index as 5. This is because we have started our counting from 0, and we can also have indexes in negative integers. So in that case, our indexing will start from the leftmost part, that is n, and it will be having a index of -1. This will have index of -1. In a similar way, this will have an index of -2, and this will have an index of -3, and up to so on. I will say this the last letter will have a index of -6. So in negative string indexing, the counting goes from rightmost side, it ends up to the leftmost side with decreasing integers. That is from negative of 1 to the negative of n, where n is the length of string. Whereas in case of positive slicing, the slicing starts from leftmost side with 0 integer, and it ends up to the last digit or the last character with the index value of the length of the string minus 1. This is indexing in Python. Now we will be talking about how can we access a particular character using indexing. We will be using these indexes to print the particular characters of a string. So we can do this by either creating a variable char and storing the index and storing the character at a particular index in the string. For example, if I want to store this h into char variable, I will simply write down the variable in which I have assigned this string, and then I will use the index between these square brackets to tell this char variable that I do not want the whole string. Instead, just get me the character that is on this index in this string. When I'm going to print this character char, you will see the desired output. But before, let me just create the terminal. Now you can see that h was at third index, and when we just print the value of third index from my string, we have successfully printed h character. In same manner, we can use negative indexing. For example, I want to print what is at -2 in this string. So I will write -2 inside the square braces and I will print the output in the terminal. So in this string, O has a negative index of 2, as it has been already explained to you earlier. Now, you guys might be wondering, why do we need negative indexing in Python for strings? So the answer to this question is, assume that here I have written a very long string, that Python is a very good language and it is very useful but quite slow when compared to C. So now you can see that this string has become very long. And now if I want to access the last character, that is C, from this string, I will have to calculate what is the length of this string, and then I will have to subtract 1 from it, and then I will have to enter it in this parenthesis to get answer. But this, you can see, is a hectic task. To solve this problem, we created negative indexing. As you already know, how can we use negative indexing to get access to this character in the string? And I will not demonstrate this again to you. Till now, we have learned how you can access a particular character from a string, that is a single character from a string. Now we will be learning how you can access a series of characters or a particular part of characters from string. So you can simply do this by directly using the print statement, or you can, as forever, assign a new variable to the part of the string and then print that variable using print statement. For this tutorial, for this time, I'm going to print the part of my string starting from. Now look very carefully at this syntax. Now I don't want this full statement. Instead, I just want that Python is very good language to be printed on terminal instead of this whole statement. Now what will I do is, I will simply start the slicing from the leftmost side, that is 0, and then I will count down how many letters are there up to this point and then subtract -1, and after calculating the index of this position, we will be using a semicolon after the first index. Then we will be using a full colon after the first index which we want to start printing from, and after that semicolon we will be entering the last index up to which we want the string to be printed. So in this case, the last character E is at a position of 30. So we will enter 30 over here, and print when we are going to execute this program, this print statement will be returning Python is very good language. So you can see that this program successfully prints a part of this whole string, that is Python is a very good language. Now we will be talking about how can we use steps in printing a part of string. So we will be printing a string slice with steps. Now, what do I mean by steps? So by saying step, I do mean that, assume we have assigned the value of step to 1. Don't worry, I will be making it clear what do I mean by step. But for now, just assume that I have assigned the value of step to 1. So what will happen? When I will assign 1 to the step, Python will start printing every first character it sees from starting to end. So by default, this my string slice has a third place to place the step, and this is generally not used when you are actually wanting to print a continuous statement. But if you want to print the statement in a manner in which you want to skip certain number of letters, like you want to skip every second letter in this entire statement, so you can simply do is that you can make the step value to 2. Now you have got it that by saying step, I do mean by the number of characters the Python interpreter will skip while it is printing a piece of string. Let me repeat that again. By saying step, I do mean that it is the number of characters that Python interpreter will skip while it is printing the string from starting. So you can even change the starting index, assume assuming that I just want to print this statement from is very good. So up to here the index will be 5 and the space will be at 6th index. You should be knowing this that even this empty white space is having a particular own index. Even white spaces in Python are assigned a index, and after that this I letter will be having an index of 7. How? Up to here it will be having 5 as you can see over here. Then the space will having an index of 6, and then I will be having an index of 7. So when I will be starting the string from 7, go up to 30, that is up to this point, and I will be skipping the step, that is this point, which denotes the step. That is, I will be skipping every second letter starting from every seventh letter. Let me explain it again. What this statement says is, I want a slice of string that starts from 7th index, goes up to 30th index, and in between it should skip every second iteration or every second character starting from the first character, that is at index 7. So what will happen? It will skip printing of this, then it will print this white space, then it will skip this, then it will print this white space, then it will skip V, then it will be printing E, and so on it will continue up to it reaches the last value given by us, that is 30. So let us run this program. As you can see that it already has printed what I have actually explained to you, and this was all about string slicing and string stepping. So we can actually have negative stepping as well if we want to print the string from the last point. Let me just illustrate it to you using this same piece of code. Now what I want is I want to start printing the character from the last iteration, that is 30, and that too I want to go in reverse order. That is, I want to start printing from here, but I want E to get printed first, then I want G to get printed, then I want A to get printed, then U, then G, and in the same manner up to I in reverse order. So I will be using -1. -1 tells the Python interpreter that move in the negative direction, that is, start from this position and end up to this position when I'm going to run this program. So the reason why we are getting no output in the terminal is that we should actually reverse the numbering when we are printing this in reverse order. So as we want to print this message in reverse order, so we should start from 30 and then we should go to 7, that is up to I. And when we are going to run this program, you will see that Python has successfully printed this string in reverse order. One thing that I want you to note is that this part of string slicing is actually inclusive. I mean, this space is actually inclusive. So, what do I mean is this starting point is always inclusive, and the end point, that is this, is actually exclusive while you are printing a part of string. You should always remember that whenever you are printing a string. So if I want the string to be in reverse order, and also I want to skip every second character from this string, I can change this to negative of 2, and you will see that Python has printed the characters in order starting from 30, skipping every second character it finds, that is first character, then second character. If you skip this, then again it will find first character, then second character, then it will be skipping this, and so on up to here. So this was all about string slicing in Python. And now there are a few more points that I would like to tell you regarding slicing in Python. That is, if you want to use only a single endpoint in in printing a slice from a string, what you can actually do is you can just leave the space for that particular endpoint empty. Assume that I want the string to start from this very position, but I want it to end at this position, that is 7. So I don't need to mention 0 over here. I can for sure leave this position empty, and print I will just enter the 8th position over here, because this position is actually exclusive. So whichever index I'm going to enter up to here, over here, that index value won't be printed. Instead, a value that is at its previous index, that is at this index minus 1 index, that is 8 minus 1 at 7th index, will be printed. So if I'm going to run this, you will be able to see it clearly. You can see that. Let me just clear it, and let me just comment it out, and now you can clearly see that I didn't enter anything over here, but Python automatically assumed that I want the string slice to start from P and end up to I. But if I have entered 7 over here, if I had entered 7 over here, that is the index of I, it would have printed the string part up to this white space only. That is, you would be able to see only Python in the terminal, and as a space also that will be trailing after Python. So you can see that this is the output that we have got, a Python word and a space after that Python word. So you can actually skip any of this part, and if you skip all of this part, then the entire string will be printed. As you can see that the entire string has been printed on your screen. So this was all about, I think, string slicing. I have given you a basic idea of how string slicing works in Python. Now we will be covering some functions to have a more better idea about strings that you are using in Python. So for example, if I want to know what is the length of this string, what is the total length of this string, so I can use print len function. This len function is actually used to return the number of items in container as it is being suggested by a VS Code. But when we use it for strings, it actually returns the length of a string that has been inside this parenthesis. You can actually give directly the string, like I can give hello, and then when I'm going to run, it should actually return 5. As you can see in the terminal, the length of this string hello is 5. You can count it down, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the same manner, you can print the length of the string that we have assigned to my string variable. I just will enter my string inside this parenthesis, and before, let me just clear the terminal, and you will be able to see what is the length of this string. So it is 85, as you can see on this terminal. So this was about length function in Python. And if you want to convert this entire string to uppercase, you can use the upper method. For this, you need to use print, and so we will, to convert this statement in uppercase, we will be using print statement, and inside that print statement, we will be using the string name, that is my string, and we will use the upper method. And when we are to run this code, we will see that the string is converted to entirely to uppercase, and it has been printed on our terminal. Now you might be wondering that why I called this functionality a method and why I called this a function. So you will be learning why I called this a function and this a method in object-oriented programming system classes, and so it will be better for me to explain it over there. But for now, let me just give you an overview. So for those excited candidates who want to satisfy their hunger, let me just give a small reference. So this this is a predefined function in Python. So what do I mean by predefined function? Please, those who don't know what is a function in Python can actually skip this part of lecture. So when I do mean by calling this functionality a function, I mean that this has been defined by using a def keyword, and then it is, this function is named len, and then it is defined in Python language in the predefined functions. But when I call this as a method, I do mean by that in a class of strings. Now when I am calling this data type a class instead of data type, let me just explain the reason why I'm calling it a class. So I am calling this class because in Python, strings of this type are actually supposed to exist only in a class that is string. So in Python, whenever you store this type of data, it actually refers, or it actually links itself to a string class, which is predefined by the makers of Python. And this is the very reason why you sometimes see when we type that type of this particular variable, as you will see that it is a class string, a class integer, which I initially told to ignore you. This is the main reason why we saw a class written over here in angular brackets. So why this is a method is because it is defined as a method inside the class of strings instead of being defined like a function. So this is the main reason why I called it a function and I called it a method. So in the similar fashion, you can actually print this entire string, which is actually, let me just make it upper and assign it to another variable so that it remains easier for me to explain it. Now I will use this uppercase string and assign it to another variable upper. When I'm going to print this upper, please look carefully that I have commented out this line. So whatever output is going to come, it will be only due to this print statement, as the above most of the code is has been actually commented out by me. So when I'm going to print this variable upper, you will be able to see that this string, this one, is printed in uppercase on my terminal. So as this is already in upper, now if I want to convert this upper to lowercase again, what will I do? Let me just rename it uh, upper str so that it remains still a good practice, because we should never ever confuse variable name with name of any method or any predefined function in Python to avoid clashes between those two functions, and it might give you an error. If not, it doesn't give you an error, then it is a very bad practice in programming. I won't recommend you to follow it. So if you want to print this upper str to lowercase, you can use this method, that is dot lower. And since you can see on my screen that this Python is a very good language and it is very useful but quite slower, this string is entirely in uppercase. This same string will be printed in lowercase now. You can see that this is the same string but in lowercase. So this was about the lower method in Python. There are a lot more methods in Python. Like, let me just tell one more to you. That is, I want to print this. Let me just now use the original string, my string, and for sake of examples, let me just comment it out instead of remove it whole. So you can actually capitalize the first letter of this string, that is this letter P of this string, by using a method known as capitalize. So to capitalize the first letter of this string, I will use my string dot capitalize, and I will call this method. But before, I will just comment these lines out so it is perfectly clear to you. And when I'm going to run this file in my terminal, you will see that the P character in this string has been capitalized. So this was capitalized method in strings. Now we will be talking about escape sequence character in Python. So in as the name escape sequence character suggests that they will escape the journally defined sequence in Python. That is the sequence of rules, or you can say that these predefined escape sequence characters can be used to actually escape the rules that are applicable inside strings. So let me just make it more clear to you by giving you an example, and let me just comment, or let me just copy this entire line of code and I will just comment it down over there. Let me just print it over here. And now I want that I want to print a single, like I want to print this entire string, but I want to make some modifications inside it. Like I want to, after I print this up to, I want print after I print the string up to this point, I want the rest of the string to come to the next line. So how can I do this? So here comes the role of escape sequence character. It will naturally, if you are going to print this statement, it will print this statement in this manner. You can see this. But if I want to break this sequence and I want to print this this rest portion into a next line, I can escape the sequence by using backslash n. Now this is actually a escape sequence vector in Python, which I can use to go to the next line, to move to the next line and print the text that precedes this escape sequence vector into a new line. So when I'm going to run this code, you can see that after this escape sequence character, from starting from this trailing white space and up to the character C, this entire part of string is printed into the next line instead of being continued in this same terminal line itself. So this is about new line character, And there are many others in Python that, like if you want to print uh, this backslash in Python, single backslash in Python, you can use this character. If you want to print a single quotation mark inside a double quotation mark, you can do that simply by this, or you can use this in Python. And if you want to print a double quotation mark inside a double quotation mark, which by default is not possible in Python, you can actually use this escape sequence character. And if you want to give a tab space after a particular word, you can use this escape sequence character, that is backslash t. And there are many other escape sequence character that I would want you to discover online. So let me just show you this output after running this file. You can see that a single backslash from here has been printed, a single quotation from here has been printed, a double quotation escaping this sequence has been printed, and a tab space has been given after this letter when. So this was all in escape sequence character from my side. And there is one more important thing while you are printing strings in Python. So let me just tell it to you. Assume that due to some reason you want to print a double quote in your terminal. So you can not do it in this manner. You will be seeing that the VS Code itself says that this will give an error, and it surely will give an error. So what you can do instead is you can either use a escape sequence character, or you can use the triple single quotes. As I've already said, you can use triple single quotes, and whatever you're going to type in this triple single quotes will be printed as it is. You can see that VS Code is not returning any kind of error, and when I'm going to run this line of code, you will see that a double quote is actually printed on your terminal. And you can similarly print a single quote on the terminal in the same manner. But there are other ways too. Like if you want to print a double quote, so instead of using a double quote and putting a double quote inside it, what you can actually do is you can put a single quote, and inside that single quote you can use double quote, and it is perfectly fine, and you will be pleased to see your output. That is, you. I hope you might not be able to see this output. So let me just clear the terminal, and you can see it now over there that I have used single quotes for starting string, and I have printed a double quotation inside the string, which is visible on my terminal. So what do you mean by this? Actually, what do I mean by this is that if you place a different type of quotation mark that other than the one that you want to print on the terminal. As you can see over here that in this case I wanted to print a double quote on terminal. So I, instead of using a double quote for resting this string inside, I used a single quotation mark and placed my string inside it. So this is another method that you can use to print a quotation in similar way. And in similar fashion you can use a single quotation and replace this by double quotations, and a single quotation will be printed. So the only point that I want you to remember is that these these quotations that enclose a string should differ from the quotation that we want to print inside that string. That is the main point, and I want you to remember this point as well. Now we will be coming onto the next topic, that is string concatenation. Let me just correct the spelling. What has happened? Concatenation. So string concatenation means you want to join two strings together. So you can just simply do this like this in your print statement, like hello. Now then you can just start a double quote again, And if you're going to type world, you will be able to see that these two strings will be combined and printed together. Let me just clear the terminal for you. I know you won't be able to see. And let me just comment this line out. Now, if I'm going to run this command, you will see that this hello and world are printed together without any white space in between, as I have not given any white space inside the string. So to make it more readable, I will give white space inside this string, and you will see that there is space. And I want you to note that no matter if I how many spaces I'm going to place between this, there will only be a single space that will be printed whenever I'm going to run this program. And the reason behind this is I have given only a single space inside the string, and the space inside these two strings will not be printed because the reason behind this is because this string started from here and ended up over here. After this, after that, Python ignores this white space, and after that, again we started a double quote string and we ended it up over here. So Python knows where you started a string and where you ended it up, and that is why it will actually concatenate two strings instead of concatenating the white space that is between these two strings. There are other methods too, like you can use a plus operator between two strings to concatenate those two strings. For example, when I'm going to run this code, let me just clear the terminal. When I'm going to run this code, this will output hello world, and this thing works in the same way as this thing works. So this was about concatenating two strings in Python print statement itself. You can also concatenate two strings like this. I want to concatenate this world and I want to concatenate this whole string. So I can do it like this. My string, and then I will use a plus, and when I'm going to run this statement, you will see that this string will be concatenated with this string. You can see over here that both of these strings have been concatenated together. You can see that these two strings are joined together, and here is the output. So this was all regarding strings from my side, but you can discover more string methods online that will help you again in your future. Now, as I have earlier said that we will discuss the membership operators in Python when it will be the good time to do so. So the time to discuss membership operators in Python has come. So I will create a new file, membership opr.py, and inside this file I will be beginning by creating a new string, and I will put that string in a variable string1. Although this is not a good way of declaring a string variable, I'm using this variable name for sake of simplicity. I don't suggest you to name variables like this. So inside this string1 I will be placing hello. Now let us come to membership operators. There are two membership operators in Python, and those are in and not in operator in Python. So assume that I want to check whether e actually exists in this string. So to check this, I will simply do that print e in, then I will in the string that is string 1, and when I'm going to run this terminal, if e is present in this string, it will return true, and if is absent from this string, it will return false. You can see that in this case, the answer is true. Let me just show you. You can see that in this case, the answer is true, and the reason behind this is already explained, as it is present in this Python string, and if it was absent from this string, it would have definitely given false. For example, A is not present in this string, so it should actually return false. You can see that the code has been successfully executed and we have got false as output. In the same way, not in operator works, but it actually works in the opposite direction. Uh, Whereas, for example, I will say that A not in string. Now this should actually return true. And the reason behind this is quite simple because A is not in hello. I will just run it again. You can see that the output is true. Since A is not in hello, so it will return true. Whereas if I enter a string which is present in this letter hello, this in this word hello, you will find that it will return false. For example, let me just type over here L. Since L is present in this string, you will see that it will return false. So this was all about in and not in membership operators. We will see their further use when we will be learning lists and other data types in Python. Now, one more thing that I would like to tell you is that you can actually search for a letter in string, uh, and Python will return you the index of that same letter. And to do this, we will use the find function in Python, which is predefined by the makers of Python. There is an update. I'm sorry, I said there is a find function, but in actual, there is a find method. So you can actually get the first occurrence of a substring in a string by using the find method in strings. So how to do this? So to do this, you just actually need to store. You can either create a variable or you can directly print using the print statement. So let me just use another variable, and I will use location variable, and I will be using the find method inside find method, and I will assign the value of that find method to this location variable. To do this, you just need to do like a string one dot find method, and inside this parenthesis you actually need to type the string which you want to find inside this whole string, or I should say you should enter the substring that you want to find inside this complete string. For example, I want to find the location where the word world starts. So to do this, I will enter world as a substring in this, and it will actually return me the first occurrence of this letter W. Why? The reason is it will search for the whole letter world, but since the letter world start from this very index, so it will return me this very index itself. So when I'm going to print this location, you will see that the output is 6 since this starts from location, or I should say index 6. You can count it like this: 5 for hello, 1 for white space, and then starts the 6th index, and at 6th index is placed the letter world. So this was something that I missed while I was explaining string, so I just put it over here. I hope it won't bother you. Now we will be moving to next topic in Python,